Okay, guys, here's the first video that we're going to do for the notes that we've gotten so far. What we're going to talk about today is significant figures. So remember that significant figures are all the numbers or all the digits in a number that are certain plus one number that is uncertain. Now, what does that mean? So remember when you're taking a measurement, I keep misspelling this word. Okay, when you're taking a measurement and you're looking at numbers, right? So let's take a look at the number like 1.443, and let's take a look at number 26.214. These are just examples, right? So what we mean by certain and uncertain is numbers that are certain, okay, are the ones that you know for sure. So in this case, what we're looking at are numbers here in the leading numbers, right? So here we know that these numbers are certain, and the last number, right, this guy right here is always going to be uncertain. Okay, that's the last number of any number. Of any number, the very last number that you have is going to be the one that is uncertain. Okay, so when you taking into account significant figures, you have to take all the numbers that are certain and then add that last uncertain number. So in this case, right, all the numbers here will be significant. So in the first example, we have 4 significant figures, which I'm going to abbreviate as sig figs. And then in the second number, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant figures. 5 sig figs. Now, these are really easy to see, right? Because all these numbers are non-zeros. Any number that is not a zero, right, is going to be significant. Where you're going to start having issues is trying to figure out which zeros are important, and that's where the rules come in, okay? So anytime you see a number, if it's not zero, you just automatically assume it's significant because that's what it is. All non-zero digits are significant. So let's look at rule number 1, right? Rule number 1 says that zeros between non-zeros are significant. So zeros between non-zeros are going to be significant, right? Now, what does that mean? That means like if I have a number that looks like this, 101 or 2004. In this case, because these zeros are between non-zeros, then they're considered significant. So this one would have 3 sig figs, and this one would have 4 sig figs. Okay, so if your zero resides between a non-zero, right, then it is significant. Let's go to rule number 2. Okay, rule number 2 says that zeros that are in the front, right, or 0.006, things like this, right, these are called leading zeros. So we're going to put these in blue, and we're going to box them in here. These are called leading zeros. What this means is that they're only there so you know where the decimal place needs to be. So they act as placeholders. Because they act as placeholders and they have to be there, right? So you know the value of your number, then those zeros are just there as a necessity and are therefore not significant. So leading zeros, right, are not significant. Okay, so when you take a look at this number has 1 sig fig, and this number has 1 sig fig. Okay, so zeros in the front are not significant because they're just there as placeholders. Okay? Number 3, right? Trailing zeros. These are the ones that are a little bit tricky because it all depends, right? Okay, so trailing zeros are zeros at the end. Okay, so let's take a look at a number like 1,000, or let's do 4,000. Let's see here. Let's do 4,000. Now, in this case, these trailing zeros are not significant because, again, they're just placeholders, right? So this one would have 1 sig fig. Now, if you were to take that 4,000 and add a decimal point at the end, well, that decimal point then now makes all these zeros significant. Okay? But you have to have that decimal there. So this one would have 4 sig figs. Okay? 4 sig figs. When you have a zero that's trailing at the right side of a decimal point, for example, let's say you have 0.010010, right? Okay. So when you're looking at numbers like this, right? Again, these in the front are just placeholders, right? So these are not significant. The zeros between the non-zeros are significant. The non-zeros are significant. And the trailing zero in this case, right here, this is now considered a trailing zero, right? So because this one is a trailing zero on the right side of a decimal point, that means that you added that zero to add that zero. You did it with intention. So then this number is therefore significant. So in this situation, right, all the zeros with the exception of the leading zeros are significant. So here you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sig figs. Okay, 5 sig figs. So the biggest issue you're going to have with significant figures is figuring out when zeros are significant. So let's take a look at an example here of a number. Okay, here's a number and it tells you exactly which ones are significant and which ones are not. So if you take a look at the leading zeros, right, the leading zeros here are not significant because they're just there as placeholders. Now, the non-zeros are obviously going to be significant, so we're going to take those into account. The zeros, according to rule number 2, right, not rule number 2, rule number 1, sorry. Zeros between non-zeros are going to be significant, right? And then the zeros at the end, right, the trailing zeros on the right side of the decimal point, those are going to be significant also. So when you're taking a look at a number like this, right, this number has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sig figs, right? Every number that is non-zero is going to be significant, and the only time you're really going to have to make the determination whether or not a number is significant is going to be with your zeros. Zeros in the front are never significant. Zeros at the back are significant with a decimal, and all zeros at the back to the right of a decimal are going to be significant, right? So let's say I had something like 400, okay? This has one significant figure. If I rewrite that as 400.00, right? Or, you know what, let's do it like this. Let's say I write it as 400 with a dot, with a decimal. Now I have 3 significant figures. If I add zeros beyond the decimal, right, then all these numbers are significant, right? And if I add numbers beyond that, right, then these zeros, right, are not leading zeros because they're between non-zero digits here and here. So all these zeros are significant. And because the trailing zero is after the right to the right side of the decimal, that one is also significant. So this number would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sig figs here. This one would have 5 sig figs. This one would have 3 sig figs. And this one would have 1 sig fig. Okay. So the only time you're going to have issue with significant figures is going to be with your zeros. So I want to encourage you guys to put this example exactly as you see it into your notes on the left page. Okay. That's it for today, guys. Thank you.